Alara's Descent, a novel of psychological terror. The darkness had teeth. Alara knew this at 5 years old when her father locked her in the closet for screaming about the man in the walls. The cramped space smelled of mildew and old wool, the walls pressing in as she counted seconds that stretched into hours. Something scratched at the wood from the other side too fast, too many hands. A wet breath whispered against her neck. When the door finally opened 12 hours later, her father found her catatonic, fingernails torn bloody from clawing at the walls. "Stop pretending," he muttered, but his hands shook as he carried her to bed. That night, her mother pressed a cold washcloth to her forehead and made her swear never to tell anyone what she'd seen in there. 20 years later, Alara's apartment walls were papered with case files and newspaper clippings. Connected by a spiderweb of red string, Blackwood Sanatorium dominated her workspace. Gothic Asylum shuttered in 1972 after patient irregularities. The records were patchy, but what remained told a horrifying story. Marcus, her psychologist friend, sighed over coffee. "These places are Rorschach tests for the damaged," he said, stirring his latte. She slid a folder across the table, 7 intake forms spanning decades, each describing identical night terrors of a shadow with needle teeth. "How do strangers describe the same monster?" Marcus's cup trembled slightly. "Collective hysteria," he insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. The forest surrounding Blackwood swallowed the road whole. A rental car died exactly 2 miles from the facility, the dashboard lights flickering like a failing heartbeat. Mist coiled between ancient oaks, their branches twisted into agonized shapes. A rusted sign warned, "Trespassers will be claimed." The trees bore gouge, not from animals, but fingernails. A doll's head hung from a branch, glass eyes tracking her progress as whispers slithered through the dead air. "Alara, I brought your closet with you." The asylum's doors were chained from the inside. She cut through them, stepping into a lobby frozen in time. Dust coated everything, yet the air smelled sterile like a hospital after bleaching. Her flashlight caught peeling wallpaper covered in scrawls. "It watches when you sleep." Beneath the nurse's station, a ledger detailed punishments patients locked in the quiet room for days, emerging broken. A film reel labeled "Final Experiment" showed a patient strapped to a chair, their reflections moving independently in the mirrors as doctors administered electroshock. The basement stairs groaned underfoot. Halfway down, her flashlight died. Something brushed her neck. "You're late for your treatment," a voice whispered, male, professional, dripping with false kindness. The walls pulsed like living flesh as overlapping voices swarmed patients, begging. Doctors coldly reciting protocols, children sobbing. A match flared, revealing a figure in a white coat, its face smooth except for a grin of needle teeth. "Subject 143, it intoned. The match burned blue and died, reality shattered. Suddenly she was 5 again, but the closet stretched into an endless ward lined with asylum beds. The patients turned their heads in unison. "Stay with us," they crooned. Her hand found a scalpel. Without hesitation, she carved "I am real" into her forearm. The entity recoiled. It fed on fear, not defiance. Yet she burned the records. As flames consumed patient files, the entity shrieked, its history turning to ash. She fled through collapsing halls, the floor dissolving into grasping hands. The bridge over Blackwood Gorge crumbled as she crossed. Behind her, the sanatorium imploded, but the whispers followed. "You can't burn us. We're in the static now, ... Back home, the nightmare continued. Her research had changed. Photos now showed her strapped to Blackwood's tables. Audio recordings she didn't remember making captured her voice reciting patient numbers. Doctors found no evidence of psychosis when Marcus had her committed. Then came his final voicemail. "Alara, I went to Blackwood. There's nothing there, Buto God. I can hear them too now. Static." A child's giggle. "You're next." That night, the TV turned itself on. Snow filled the screen as voices whispered patience, Marcus, her own all chanting. "The door is open." The closet door creaked ajar. The entity wasn't just a ghost, it was a cancer grown from decades of suffering. It had been waiting for her since childhood. Dr. Elias. Blackwood's 1930s experiments had created a psychic wound that fed on trauma, and Alara had been carefully cultivated as its perfect host. Over 200 people had vanished near the asylum since 1972, their voices now part of its chorus. Investigators would later find Marcus's recorder near the gorge. His final words, "It's not a place, it's a hunger, ... As the closet door swung wider, Ilara understood the terrible truth: some doors, once opened, can never be closed.